Hi, I'm Sharon Corr and you're watching Noise 11.
Welcome to Noise 11. We're here with Sharon Corr of The Corrs, but not today. You're just Sharon Corr. Welcome.
Just me, yes. Hi.
Only you're by yourself here because debut solo album.
Yeah.
Look, I was wondering why indeed you went to do this, because Andrea's put out a couple of records solo. And I was wondering what this gave, what opportunities this gave you that you couldn't do with your main band, the group, the family, the Corrs.
Well, I mean, it's really just about, self-expression. For me, when you're in a band, there's a certain amount of what you do that becomes diluted, sometimes for the better and sometimes for the worse. You know what I mean? So when you're writing your own album and creating your own album, there's total license to go to the end that you want to go to. Whereas when you're working with four other people, that can also be really, really great, but you compromise all of the time. And for me, it just seemed like a natural part of my journey. When we came off the road about 5-6 years ago, I started having my kids, but I made a conscious decision to keep writing because you get really rusty if you don't. And then I was just writing and I thought, I'm doing a solo record. That's what's actually happening here, So it was very organic. The other thing is for me is that it's important for me. I don't want to have to rely on other people in order to be able to perform and to gig and to travel the world. It's what I love doing, and I'm constantly badgering my poor manager over there for more gigs and all. Let's go to Brazil. Let's go to Australia. It's what I want to do for the rest of my life, for as long as people want to see me doing it. So creating my own solo record, and I'm already working on the second one, gives me that opportunity to do that without having to rely on other people.
Right. I find it amazing to hear that you actually have to work on it, because I guess all of them just kind of took their bit of time off and had their families. Yeah. And I thought that it would just naturally be coursing through your veins. You would always be thinking about music.
Yeah,
but you get rusty if you don't.
Well, I mean, that's why I think you certainly get rusty if you come off the road and you're not doing shows. You certainly get rusty as a stage performer. But I knew for songwriting, it's like, it's just kind of like being a journalist. The more you write, the better you become, and the better it is to read. For me as a songwriter, the more and more songs you write, I think the better you get as a songwriter. So you can't sort of just let it slip for a while. So and I'm really glad that I made that decision right now, because I'm writing pretty consistently all the time, and it's a good thing.
What could you learn from Andrea's albums? Did you obviously heard them and the process that she went through? Did you get any tips coming into it?
No, not tips as such. I mean, because we'd already done it together in a band, we're kind of like musical peers. So it wasn't a situation of... I think one thing Andrea did say to me is she did say to me, it's not the same out there. Because the world had actually changed in the meantime. And then it all gone into download and all the rest. And, the music industry itself had changed. But for me, it's not. For me, it's a matter of... being able to create music and get out there and perform, and no matter how the world is changing, I want to adapt and do it while adapting to that. So I don't really see any hindrances. I just see a way to get out there and do it.
Now, of course, there's originals on here. There's traditional stuff. Yeah. There's covers. There's a couple of interesting covers in there, in that Everybody's Got to Learn Sometime was the second single for the Corgis. It was a hit for the Corgis in the 80s. Yeah. And it's been covered by a lot of electro acts.
Yeah.
And same thing for the Bronski Beat cover in there.
Yeah, yeah.
Which I find strange, the electro thing, where did this love for that sort of music come from?
Well, it's actually, that was Smalltown Boy is like one of the biggest songs of my teenage years, so it was absolutely huge. So I grew up with that really electronic sound. But the reason I covered it was because I felt I could bring something different to it. When you listen to the lyrics and that, they're heartbreaking, they're incredibly poignant, and they are probably the most accurate insights that you ever come across into how it must feel to be outcast for your sexuality. And it's just a beautiful song, and I wanted to change it. So when you listen to it, it's not electronic at all. It's really raw, it's really organic, and we've even put a live orchestra on that, and it's dark but very beautiful. So I like to cover stuff if I think I can bring something different to it.
I've got to say, I didn't recognise it immediately.
Yeah, good.
I had this playing in the background, and I just thought, I've got those lyrics. What? Huh? And then I picked up the CD and went, oh, wow. So, I guess you approaching it that way.
Yeah.
Yeah, is interesting. Yeah, because it's an interesting mix. There are some synthesizers and some pop sounds on this
on
album,
the record,
as well as some very traditional Celtic sounds as well, which I thought was interesting. But there's also some very majestic stuff from the Irish Film Orchestra. Yeah. Now, is this something where you're putting together a song, you have in your head what you think and the orchestration might sound like, and then you go to someone? Or do you say, here's a song and I just want I want some orchestration on it, and they present you with something? No, I mean, the way it works is with Melding on the album, which means Women of Ireland, it's Irish. What we did was we sat in the studio, we came up with the arrangement where it's a track that's been covered many, many times, but usually vocally, and I wanted to do it as a tune. And because it's a very beautiful tune by Sean O'Riordan. So what we do is we kind of sit in the studio and organically play it and come up with a great arrangement for it, and then we come up with a kind of a mid-section where I'm just plucking on violin, and that all then inspired the scoring. So some of the scoring, it's initially inspired by what myself and the producer came up with in the studio, and then we gave Fiacre Trench was the scorer, and we said, okay, we'll work off that. So he works off that and just makes it maybe more interesting or changes it up slightly, but they're kind of very organic. They work together. Did you get Jeff Beck on it to give it a bit of colour as well? Is that the idea? Jeff Beck inspired it, I have to say, because I wasn't considering even doing Melding Heron, but it was a bit of a ploy, because I went to a gig of his in Dublin, bang in the middle of doing my album, and the gig was just mind-blowing, as he is. It's just ridiculous. He's so good. And Vinnie Caluda was on drums, and amazing bass player as well. But I blagged my way backstage because I knew all the bouncers on the gig. And he was such a gorgeous guy to meet, and we got on like a house on fire. But in my head, I was kind of thinking, God, I wonder would he, play on my album. So we had a long think about it, and we thought, well, what would attract him? Because he's a real purist. I thought, well, what might attract him is that sort of mixture between classical and traditional that I do. So we kind of thought of a lot of pieces and then settled on Melding Heron, and we sent it to him, and he just absolutely adored it. He now plays it on every gig that he does. Oh, right. And I've joined him a couple of times on stage playing it. So, and he actually says to me, what are you doing on my song? And I'm saying, that's my song, get off my song. And it was brilliant, because I loved the sort of the playfulness between the sort of really sexy, gritty guitar and the very graceful violin. They're just they're unusual bedfellows, if you know what I mean, and they worked really well together for that reason, I think. Yeah, well, that's fantastic. And you've been around, I suppose you've been around so long, I just assumed you and Jeff Beck were buddies. That made sense to me. But also, I noticed you have been a mentor on The Voice of Ireland, which is obviously a version of The Voice, which is famous in the US. And they're just bringing one out here. Yeah. I presume you've heard. Have you got any advice for Seal and Keith Urban, and who else is on it? Delta and Joel Madden? What could you tell them about mentoring the voices? Well, I mean, my God, they know so much already. What could I tell them? I mean, the beautiful thing about The Voice, which is why I got involved, is that it has, huge integrity, and you're genuinely working with the artists, and you're genuinely pulling on your history in the business to help them maybe get another step up the ladder, and get them some exposure. So I would say to them, just enjoy it, because it's actually, when you get, there are a lot of talent shows out there, and when you get one that sort of perfectly marries TV and music, I think it's really, really, really great for the artist. So it's very nurturing,
And it's great fun. I mean, with my fellow coaches, with Cian Egan from Westlife, and with it's a guy called Brezzy from the Blizzards in Ireland, and Brian Kennedy, and we're having so much fun. The crack is brilliant. Yeah, we are having a ball. It's just really great, and to be able to have these artists, because you can see, how their own demons are pulling themselves back from having a great performance, like nerves and that sort of thing, and just helping them with that is very rewarding.
Are they teaching you anything? These young ones?
Wow, that's it, yeah. Well, I suppose the thing is I'm getting exposed to an awful lot more genres, and I have been exposed to a lot, but I've had to seek out a lot of different music that I wouldn't normally focus on to suit them, not to suit me, to suit them.
Yeah.
So I think I'm probably getting a lot of great inspiration from them, because I'm listening to everything from Lady Gaga to Sarah McLachlan to Primal Scream, or so it's a great big buffet to sort of pick from.
Yeah, in fact, I saw that you played Electric Picnic late last year.
Yeah.
And that was a really interesting, diverse lineup, seeing you alongside Interpol and Arcade Fire and whatnot.
Yeah.
How do you approach going to a more alternative festival like that? I mean, do you spend that much time with the other acts, or you just sort of pop up and play your bit and see what the crowd makes of you?
Normally you just pop up and play your bit. I mean, I
ask this a lot, and people kind of go, yeah, I didn't meet Kanye on the big day out.
Do you know, people are usually just so focused on their gig. I mean, there's a lovely vibe backstage, and I spend a bit of time with Gavin Friday, and, but it's, people are they're focused on, it's a big vast site, so you don't get an awful lot of time to spend with each other, so you're kind of trying to get your slot, and you don't really get a sound check, so it's kind of,
How were you received by, say, the Public Enemy fans?
I've no idea. I wasn't able to pick out which ones were the Public Enemy. I do what I do, and it's quite varied, and I love it, so hopefully people get a good vibe off it,
Yeah, well, it's ridiculous in Australia. You consistently, with the Corrs, go platinum. It's ridiculous.
Yeah.
Even more so maybe than Ireland. I've seen you've charted higher here.
Yeah, we were bigger here first.
What, can you explain this?
Well, I think at the time, for us, the radio market here was open. It wasn't quite so programmed, so that the DJs were able to pick and respond to what their listeners were loving. And, sometimes, you can have great music, but it also is very much about timing, because I remember when we went out in the States at first, it was all grunge. I was like, who's going to listen to an Irish band play with diddly eye in the middle of pop music and some rock, and when it's all Nirvana, So sometimes you can hit just great times, but I think it's actually because the Australians were just so open to it. And it's also, your heritage as well. Your heritage is in sort of the land of the Celts and all the rest. So you get the Irish thing. And we came back every year. I mean, we spent a lot of time here and loved it. So
you're going around the country with Ronan Keating.
Yeah.
How well did you know him? How well do you know him? Are you getting to know him a lot more?
I know him a lot better now. Ronan and I have kind of, met in backstage corridors forever. We'd be getting off a gig and they'd be getting on a gig. And I suppose we have a big affinity because with each other, because, we're both coming out of big bands and trying to assert ourselves as solo artists, and he's done that really well. And, I admire him because he's a really hard worker, he's a grafter, and, that's how I think you get on in life. So he's great. We're singing most nights on stage together. And
oh, really? What are you performing?
We're doing the track he did with Leanne Rimes, It's the Last Thing on My Mind.
Okay.
And it's great. Our voices work really well together, so we're really enjoying that. So, yeah, he's a really nice guy. I like him. He's very generous, and there's a great vibe with his crew and all that sort of thing. And I think you'll always know an artist by how much their band and their crew like them.
Oh, really?
Oh, yeah.
What, there's contentiousness there?
It's a huge indication as to who the artist is and how they actually are as people. Because if their band don't know them and their crew don't know them that well, then, it's they're maybe not that friendly, but no, they love him. So
You
he's
must
a good
be
guy.
okay as well, because you've got the Duffys on this again.
Yeah,
and everyone's the
those
same.
guys are great, and they're on stage with me at the moment as well.
Oh, fantastic.
Yeah.
All right, and my boss will kill me if I don't ask about the commitments before I go.
Oh wow, okay.
This is something which I guess kind of almost started you off, being in the film.
Yeah.
And it started off a lot of other careers, I guess, in bits and pieces.
Yeah.
Has there ever been a reunion? Do you see your fellow...
Well, the actual cast, I mean, you probably find it very hard to find me in the actual film. You know, what I got out of the film was kind of, it was like a flashing image, and then,
so you're an extra, basically.
Yeah, I was an
featuring
extra,
role, yeah.
absolutely. But what we got out of the film was we actually got a publishing deal out of Beacon Communications. Were joined up with Polygram, I think, at the time. And we ended up getting a publishing deal, which allowed us to go and create our demos and then get on to making our album. So that's what we got out of the commitments.
You haven't gone back and watched it recently?
Every so often it's on, but it's kind of weird. It's, what was it, 1990 or something when it came out? It just feels like 100 years ago.
I think it was.
I think it was as well.
Yeah. All right, that's fine. That's all I needed to know. Thanks very much for coming in.
Thank you very much for having me. Thanks.